everybody. Welcome to our workshop. Today we're going to be discussing how to appeal an admission decision. And this workshop is brought to you by the Los Angeles Harbor College Transfer Center. My name is Natalie Parra, and I'm a counselor here at the Transfer Center, and we can get started. So to go over the agenda, we're going to be covering what exactly an admission appeal is, common reasons for appealing, things to be mindful of when considering appealing, additional options for students, committing to a different campus, and then we're going to have a question answer session at the end. So what is an admission appeal? An admission appeal is a request for a university to give your application reconsideration for admission. And what happens is if a student gets a response and it doesn't work out with that campus, the university will give instructions on the exact appeal process because it does vary by campus. So common reasons a student might have for appealing. It might be because the student really wanted to go to that campus. So if it was a student's first choice and they're disappointed that they weren't accepted, then they'll go ahead and consider appealing because they really want to exhaust all options and measures to try to get into that campus. Additionally, a student might appeal because, let's say the campus didn't admit them because their application indicated that the student wouldn't be completing 60 units by the end of their final year at Harbor College. In that case, if the student's able to add more classes, maybe their class got canceled, or maybe the class was originally not going to be available, and they're now able to reach the 60 units, then the student could try to appeal that way as well and just share that they were able to get the units needed. Perhaps a student maybe needs to repeat a course in their final semester that was needed for transfer. That's another reason you're going to let the university know that you're retaking a class or that you're adding extra classes for the major that were needed that affected your admission initially. Any errors that were made on the application, the student will want to let the university know that that's another reason for appeal. Maybe the student decided that they were going to finish their associate degree for transfer requirements after all because they realized a little late that the ADT could benefit them more than they thought originally. Sometimes if a student has a change of heart about getting that degree, then they can appeal and let the university know that they're going to be finishing up degree requirements as well. Another instance is when GPA increases. Perhaps a student repeated classes in fall and now their GPA has increased, or they finally got approved for academic renewal and their GPA increased. That's another case where you would want to let the university know. And the most compelling reason for a university to accept admission appeal is when a student has medical or financial reasons beyond the student's control. That is when the university is most understanding for students. But be aware that you will have to provide documentation, whether that be doctor's notes or billing statements, things like that. But when it's outside of a student's control, then the university is the most forgiving of students. Any questions for me yet?
No,
okay. So some things to be mindful of during the appeal process. So first and foremost, the university has already admitted the maximum number of students to meet their enrollment targets. So what that means is at that point, they only have so much room. It's a tiny percentage of students that they can accommodate to bring into the university through the appeal process. And the approval appeals are often considered only, like I said before, for extraordinary reasons beyond the control of the applicant. I'll give you another example. I had a student once who the university accidentally counted their units wrong. So the student was denied for not having 60 units. And I counted and counted over again the transcripts with the student. Student definitely had 60. So we did the appeal process for that student. And in that case, since it was the university's fault, they overturned the admission decision and admitted the student. But the student didn't find out until much later. The student didn't find out until around midsummer. So that's the hard thing too, is that by midsummer, if you're expecting a response by then, that is very short notice to try to plan to either relocate or get all of the affairs in order needed to seamlessly transition to the university. Another thing that I wanted to add, so when a student submits their appeal, there isn't really much to lose because you already spent money on the application. However, what you do lose is time, because it can be a little time consuming. A lot of students like to make a counseling appointment to review the appeal process. So there is time and effort put into submitting an appeal. So it should be, if a student really, really feels in their heart that it's the best decision for them. And then additionally, you want to make sure to follow the university's instructions for submitting the appeal, and to make sure that you meet the deadline to appeal. So a student normally can't just appeal 3 months later, 4 months later. When I've looked through the appeal options, it normally tells the student that they have about 2 weeks, sometimes as little as 2 weeks, to let the university know that they're going to be appealing, and they have to have all the documents in within those 2 weeks as well. So it is a short turnaround time, and then the university does take quite a bit of time to get back to the student a lot of the time. So that's the thing, it's a long process in many cases. So additional options while appealing admission. So what some students may do is they may consider submitting an intent to register or enroll for a campus that has already accepted them. And the student should follow all of the admission instructions for the campus that they're choosing to have as their backup plan in case the campus they're appealing to doesn't work out after all. Students might also apply to other campuses that are still accepting applications. I'll give an example of a university that is still accepting applications. It would be University of Laverne. They're actually accepting applications to July, and they're a private university. So the Cal States and the UCs at this point, their applications have been closed since the fall of last year, since November 30th. But for a lot of private universities that are still open, it's normally the smaller liberal arts colleges. They can still accept applications at this time. You would just have to check the deadline for each campus individually, and that could be another option for you while you're waiting to hear back from the campus you're appealing. And then additionally, if you really want to go to the campus you're appealing, you could also consider applying for a future semester, but be careful that you do not exceed the maximum units that the campus will allow for transfer. Any questions at this time?
No.
Okay. So then there's the debate. Should you commit to a different campus or not? So students who choose to commit to a different campus, there are some advantages and there are some disadvantages. So if a student decides that the second option has admitted them to the university, to the major, that they really wanted, and they're okay with going to that campus, they like it too, and the student's main priority is to transfer as quickly as possible to a four-year university, and the student does not mind losing the deposit money, because you do have to pay double in that case. You have to pay the deposit for your backup school, and you have to pay again if the university that you appealed accepted you. So sometimes that's over $200 alone, if not at least $200 in many cases, that you're going to be paying for double intent to enroll deposit fees. So that's the thing with that. And then the answer could be no if you have no interest in attending any of the other universities that accepted you. Maybe the other campuses that accepted you didn't even put you in your major that you wanted. That's another disadvantage too, where a student might say, well, I didn't really want to go to that campus. They didn't admit me to my major of choice. And maybe the student feels like it's not the biggest priority to transfer out immediately, and they're okay with waiting another application cycle, which can be up to a year. So it depends on each student individually, but I encourage you, if you are considering this as an option, it's a great idea to meet with a counselor to determine how to be competitive when doing an appeal, what's going to help you stand out, options for transferring in a different term, in a future term, things like that. How's everyone doing? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, we're going to go into questions that students might have. Does anybody have any questions for me at this time?
I have one question. I know that you mentioned if you're admitted into a university but not into your major, if that were the case, do you know what the steps would be to somehow switch to your major, or is that a separate process?
It depends on the campus. So if it's a campus like USC, they can be flexible with allowing a student to change majors once they transfer in. When it's Cal States and UCs, sometimes they're much more rigid with accepting students into a different major. So let's say, for example, we have a nursing student, and the nursing student gets waitlisted to a campus that they really wanted to transfer to for the nursing major. Um, they have all the nursing prerequisites, but the alternate campus admitted them for kinesiology major. Um, so if that's the case, or if the student got denied admission to that nursing program, but they got admitted to kinesiology at a separate campus, then for them, they might say, well, I really wanted to do the nursing major. I just did the kinesiology as a backup. But if this is the case, the student might feel like, oh, I don't really have much of a choice because at that other campus, maybe they don't have nursing. Some campuses don't have every major. That's the one part that can be a drawback, is that we do encourage our students to apply widely and broadly, but sometimes a student might not have the option of picking their first choice major at campus number 2 that they apply to. So they have to pick something else, like maybe instead of administration of justice, because it's not available, they'll have to pick political science. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So yeah. Any other questions for me?
So when you're applying to a UC or a CSU, for example, and you want to apply to multiple campuses, when do you think you'll hear the approval for it in admissions? And if you were to be approved to multiple campuses, how do you submit for the enrollment or the possible enrollment?
So the way it works, each campus will have their specified time frame of when to let a student know. Students apply in fall for admission the following school year fall. So our students who applied this past fall 2019 are waiting on admission for fall 2020 is when they'll begin at the university. So many of the Cal States began releasing admission decisions around January, February.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest being late January, the latest being in March. The UCs have been announcing each campus little by little, but the UCs by May 1st, all of them will have released their decision to students. The Cal States are a little bit more flexible, so they'll allow students to submit their intent to register at more than one Cal State if necessary. So that's along the lines where maybe a student says, I got accepted to Cal State San Francisco and I got accepted to Dominguez Hills, but I'm not sure if I really want to move or not. There's some additional expenses that have come along that I don't know if it's a good idea for me to move to Northern California, but I don't want to lose that option. So I want to commit to both schools at the same time. That is possible. However, the student will have to pay for both deposits, and that's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If the student's okay with that, then we understand, of course. The UCs, however, will not allow students to put in deposits for 2 separate UCs. It's on their website. It's not allowed.
So going off the question, you said the CSUs will release it around January, February, and the UCs might release around May. How long do you have to make this selection before, like how long after the admissions are released do you have to accept admissions or enroll?
So the Cal States, they will tell you how long that you have. So some Cal States might say you have until within 30 days within receiving the letter. The UCs, excuse me, the UCs, their deadline is June 1st. Mm-hmm. The Cal States, for the most part, their solid deadline is May 1st, their intent to enroll. But what they will require in the meantime is they might ask the student to follow the steps for new students. And if the student is missing anything, then they could lose their admission. So if the Cal State asks for the student to to create a portal and a login, for example, and the student doesn't do that by the deadline, that that could cause a student to lose their offer. Things like that. There are a lot of steps that each campus requests of a student in order to be sure that the student is serious about attending that campus. So at that point, that's why a lot of our students, their acceptance letters will say that they were given conditional admission, and it's on the condition that they satisfy all terms of the agreement. So that could be sending transcripts on time. That could be creating the portal on time. For the Cal States and the UCs right now, with the climate that we're in, they're being more flexible with those deadlines, but in a normal situation where things are going fine, typical year, they're very strict with their deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
And a student could even be forced to do an appeal for missing a deadline too, actually.
Okay. So say for example, I were to apply, so this is how it worked. I'd be applying to a couple of CSUs and maybe one UC, and so say I got into one of the CSUs I'd want to go to, I would have to submit an intent to enroll and then wait for the UC or the UC acceptance, and basically go for, like, I would have to give the deposit to both schools to be able to have the option to pick one or the other.
If you want to have more time. So, I mean, I have a lot of students that they've already heard back from, I'll give you an example, UC Riverside, UC Davis, for example. I know some of my students are still waiting to hear back from UCLA, but UC Santa Barbara also already announced their decisions as well. And we're in April. I would say at that point, the students have, the Cal States they've already been hearing back from since March, even in April too. So when that's the case, the student does have limited time to make a choice, but the UCs do allow until June, and a lot of the Cal States actually extended their request to know back from the student with the intent to enroll. Some Cal States are extending to June as well in this time frame, given the circumstances. But when students have trouble with things like that, we normally talk to them in the transfer center too. I mean, you would be welcome to make an appointment to get assistance with determining if it is in your best interest to pay both deposits, or if it's better to really weigh things out and come to your decision earlier. If you were to submit your intent to enroll to both a UC and a Cal State, the systems wouldn't be communicating with each other to notify each other, and that wouldn't affect your admission. That wouldn't happen. It's not possible. But if you were to try to do an intent to enroll for UCLA and UC Santa Barbara, that would not be possible.
Okay, that's good information.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for me?
No.
No? Okay. Well, both of you are welcome to come into the transfer center at any time if you have any questions. Do either of you already follow us on Instagram?
No, I'm not sure I do.
So if you look in the bottom of this screen here, it says at LAHC Transfer Center is our Instagram name. So that's where we actually publicize our workshops. That's where we provide information on different transfer updates. You're also welcome to call our office if you have questions at 310-233-4282. Our phone number is listed there. And if you go into our Instagram, you're also able to book appointments with a counselor there. So if you'd like to book an appointment with me, my name is Natalie Parra. I'm glad to meet with you. And it also lists the additional counselors. Additionally, if you were to go to the Harbor College website, would you like me to show you how to access appointments on the Harbor College website?
Sure.
Yeah.
Give me one moment. So once we get to the Harbor College website, if you go to For Students here, and then you scroll down to Transfer Center, this provides additional information about the Transfer Center counselors. So this is our director here. This is me, Ms. Parra, or you can call me Natalie, Ms. Hernandez, Marcella. These are all counselors that you could book with if you want to. You could also go to the homepage up here for the Transfer Center. Well, it's the same content. But do you see how it says connect with transfer team here?
Mhm.
The counselor. So if you click, do you see how it says office and it has this link here? So if you copy that into a browser, let's say this one, for example. My schedule appear here. I'm actually booked for this week, but next week will be a new week. These are my appointment availability. So you would just click on a time that you'd like to come in and put in your information here, and then you'll get a confirmation email at the end when you're done.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's easy.
And then if you do use Instagram, if you just go to the Transfer Center Instagram, you could search us at LAHC Transfer Center. If you go to our link in bio here, we actually have a link tree. So it shows you multiple links. We actually have the link for the workshop today, and then you can scroll down whichever counselor you'd like to see. So my name is right here, and you could also make an appointment that way too. So whatever is more convenient for you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Do you have any more questions for me?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, well, have a wonderful day, both of you. Stay healthy, stay well, and you're so welcome to see me for an appointment at any time with for questions.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Thank you
nice
for your help.
day. You're so welcome. Bye.
Bye.